7-minute lab, breath plus awareness versus doom scrolling, a 1-week measurable test. The glow of the screen, a constant companion in the hushed hours of the night, promises connection, information, and escape. Yet, for so many of us, it delivers a gnawing unease, a subtle erosion of our present moment. We scroll through curated lives, urgent news cycles, and endless streams of opinion. Each swipe, a tiny surrender of our attention, a fleeting flicker of engagement that leaves us feeling paradoxically more disconnected and overwhelmed. This isn't just a modern habit, it's a profound existential challenge, a subtle battlefield for our consciousness. We are caught in a loop, a digital current pulling us away from ourselves, leaving us adrift in a sea of manufactured urgency and hollow validation. The question that whispers in the quiet moments, the one we often push away with another notification, is simple yet monumental. In this age of constant digital inundation, are we truly living or merely observing a simulation of life? This isn't about demonizing technology. It's about understanding its impact on the very fabric of our being. The relentless barrage of information and stimuli, the curated perfection of online personas, the echo chambers of affirmation and outrage, they all conspire to pull us out of our own bodies, out of our own minds, and into a space where authentic experience becomes a distant memory. We find ourselves reacting, not responding. We become passive consumers of a world that demands our attention but offers little genuine nourishment for the soul. This constant state of digital engagement, this doom scrolling, that has become an almost involuntary ritual for many, is not just a time sink. It's a profound distraction from the deeper currents of our own existence. It's the siren song of the modern world, luring us onto the rocks of distraction, away from the quiet shores of self-awareness and genuine presence. We are offered an illusion of control, a sense of being in the loop, while simultaneously losing grasp of our own agency, our own inner compass. The anxiety that simmers beneath the surface, the pervasive sense of being overwhelmed, the quiet ache of loneliness, even when surrounded by digital friends. These are not accidental byproducts. They are the symptoms of a fundamental disconnect, a growing chasm between our inner lives and the external digital landscape we inhabit. The problem is not the tool itself, but our relationship with it. We have allowed the external to eclipse the internal, the immediate to overshadow the enduring. We are so busy consuming, so preoccupied with the next update, the next notification, the next fleeting trend, that we've forgotten how to simply be. We've forgotten the profound power of the unmediated moment, the quiet strength that comes from grounding ourselves in our own breath, in our own awareness. This script embarks on a journey to reclaim that lost territory, to explore the profound contrast between passively consuming a digital deluge and actively cultivating inner stillness. It's an invitation to a different kind of engagement, one that doesn't require more scrolling, but less. It's about understanding that true connection, true understanding, and true peace are not found on a screen, but within the quiet sanctuary of our own minds, accessible through practices as ancient as humanity itself. We will delve into the power of presence, not as a vague spiritual concept, but as a tangible, measurable force that can reshape our experience of the world. Consider the subtle but devastating impact of this constant digital tether. We find ourselves checking our phones before our feet even touch the floor in the morning. Our first conscious act of the day, dedicated to external stimuli, rather than internal grounding. This sets a tone of reactivity, of being pulled by the demands of the world, before we've even had a moment to orient ourselves within our own being. The anxiety that follows, the feeling of being perpetually behind, of never quite catching up, is a direct consequence of this inversion of focus. We are offered an endless buffet of information, but it often leaves us feeling starved for meaning. We are bombarded with opinions, but we struggle to find our own authentic voice. This is the paradox of our hyper-connected age. The more we are digitally present, the more we risk becoming absent from ourselves. The external noise drowns out the inner wisdom, and we are left feeling like strangers in our own lives, adrift in a sea of digital distraction. This exploration is not a critique of the digital age itself, but a call to conscious engagement with it. It's about recognizing that while the digital world offers unprecedented access and connection, it also presents us with a unique challenge to our inner lives. The ease with which we can escape into the digital realm, the instant gratification it offers, can become a powerful addiction, a way to avoid the deeper, more challenging work of self-discovery and authentic living. We are presented with a false dichotomy. Either we are fully immersed in the digital, or we are Luddites rejecting progress. But the truth, as it often does, lies in the nuanced middle ground, in finding a way to harness the benefits of technology without succumbing to its potential pitfalls. This journey is about reclaiming our attention, our presence, and our sense of agency in a world that constantly vies for them. It's about discovering the profound difference between being overwhelmed by external stimuli and being grounded in our own inner landscape. Our focus will be on a powerful antidote, a practice that has the potential to fundamentally alter our relationship with the digital world and, more importantly, with ourselves. It's a practice that requires no special equipment, no subscriptions, and no followers. Only your willingness to turn your attention inward. We will explore how the simple act of breathing, combined with a cultivated awareness, can serve as an anchor in the storm of digital information, a shield against the siren call of distraction. This isn't about achieving some mystical state of enlightenment overnight. It's about a practical, measurable, and deeply human endeavor to reclaim our present moment. It's about understanding that the most profound connections, the deepest insights, and the most enduring sense of peace are not found in the endless scroll, but in the quiet, unwavering rhythm of our own existence. This is the beginning of a journey to rediscover the power of being truly present, to understand that in a world clamoring for our attention, the greatest act of rebellion might just be to simply breathe. The philosophical bedrock upon which our struggle against digital distraction rests is the concept of intentionality. This isn't merely about having goals, it's about the directedness of consciousness, the active engagement of our will in shaping our experiences and our attention. When we succumb to the endless scroll, our intentionality is surrendered. Our consciousness, instead of being a directed beam, becomes a scattered light, flickering erratically from one stimulus to the next. This passive consumption represents a fundamental abdication of our inner agency, allowing external forces to dictate the flow of our mental landscape. The algorithms, designed to capture and retain our gaze, exploit this very tendency. They offer a constant stream of novelties, a perpetual dopamine drip that hijacks our natural reward pathways, making it increasingly difficult to disengage and redirect our focus towards our own chosen pursuits. Consequently, the richness of our inner world, the space for deep thought, creativity, and genuine connection, begins to atrophy. Building on this, however, we can examine the profound impact of embodiment on our ability to resist this digital drift. Our physical presence in the world, the felt sense of our body, is often the first casualty of excessive screen time. When we are engrossed in a digital interface, our awareness tends to recede from our physical sensations, from the subtle messages our body sends us about our needs and our environment. This disembodied state renders us more susceptible to distraction and less capable of grounding ourselves in the present moment. Conversely, practices that re-establish a connection with our physical selves, such as mindful movement or simply paying attention to the sensations of our feet on the ground, can serve as powerful counterpoints to the disorienting effects of digital immersion. This reconnection isn't about escaping the digital, but about creating a robust internal locus of control, a stable core from which to navigate the external world, both digital and physical. Furthermore, the psychological concept of cognitive load offers a crucial lens through which to understand why constant digital input is so draining and counterproductive. Our brains have a finite capacity for processing information. When we are bombarded with a relentless stream of notifications, updates, and stimuli, our cognitive resources become depleted. This overload leads to a feeling of overwhelm, decreased productivity, and an increased susceptibility to errors. The doom-scrolling phenomenon is a prime example of this. The sheer volume of often negative or distressing information taxes our emotional and cognitive systems, leaving us feeling exhausted and anxious without any real resolution. Consequently, the ability to engage in deep work, to solve complex problems, or even to simply enjoy a quiet moment of reflection becomes severely compromised. Another crucial layer is the philosophical idea of authenticity, particularly as explored by existentialist thinkers. Authenticity, in this context, refers to living in accordance with one's true self, making choices that reflect one's own values and commitments, rather than conforming to external pressures or societal expectations. The constant engagement with curated online personas and the pursuit of external validation through likes and shares can actively undermine our pursuit of authenticity. We begin to perform a version of ourselves for an online audience, leading to a disconnect between our inner experience and our outward presentation. This can foster a deep-seated sense of unease and a feeling of living a life that is not truly our own. Conversely, actively choosing to disengage from the digital noise and cultivate our inner lives can be a powerful act of self-affirmation, a step towards living a more genuine and meaningful existence. Consider how this applies when you find yourself reaching for your phone during moments of boredom or discomfort. Instead of immediately seeking external stimulation, what if you were to acknowledge the feeling of boredom or discomfort? What if you were to simply notice it without judgment and then consciously choose to redirect your attention to your breath or to the sensations in your body? This micro-act of reclaiming your attention, of asserting your intentionality, is a profound shift. It's about recognizing that these moments of emptiness are not voids to be filled with external noise, but fertile ground for internal exploration. This is where the measurable difference begins. It's in these small, deliberate choices to resist the automatic pull of the screen and to instead engage with your own inner experience that the true power of presence begins to manifest. The human mind, a vast and intricate landscape, has always been susceptible to the allure of the immediate and the novel. Before the digital age, it was the flickering firelight, the captivating story, the sudden rustle in the undergrowth that commanded our attention. These were primal alerts wired into our survival. Today, however, the stimuli are no longer solely ecological or social in the traditional sense. They are manufactured, amplified, and delivered with an unnerving precision that preys on these ancient attentional mechanisms. The constant influx of information, often presented in bite-sized, easily digestible formats, creates a peculiar kind of mental hunger, a craving for novelty that is never truly satisfied. This is akin to a perpetual state of sensory feast, where the palate becomes so accustomed to constant stimulation that subtler, more profound flavors are overlooked. The consequence is a subtle but pervasive desensitization to the richness of lived experience, a diminishment of our capacity for sustained contemplation and deep engagement with reality. Consider the neurological underpinnings of this phenomenon. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with reward and motivation, is released in anticipation of a reward. In the context of social media and news feeds, each notification, each new piece of content, acts as a potential reward trigger. This creates a feedback loop where the anticipation of a reward becomes more powerful than the reward itself, driving compulsive checking behaviors. This is not a sign of weakness or a lack of willpower. It is a sophisticated manipulation of our brain's reward circuitry. The constant seeking, the intermittent reinforcement, makes disengagement incredibly challenging, even when we consciously recognize the detrimental effects on our well-being. It's a digital siren song, promising connection and information, but ultimately leading us away from genuine presence and inner peace. Furthermore, the nature of digital information itself often lacks the narrative depth and contextual richness found in real-world interactions. News headlines are designed for immediate impact, stripped of nuance. Social media posts are often performative, curated glimpses rather than authentic expressions. This fragmentation of information, while seemingly efficient, can lead to a superficial understanding of complex issues and a diminished capacity for critical thinking. We become adept at skimming, at processing snippets, but lose the ability to engage in sustained analytical thought. This is like trying to understand a symphony by listening to only a few isolated notes. The overall harmony, the intricate development of themes, and the emotional arc are lost. Consequently, our understanding of the world becomes shallow, and our ability to respond to its complexities with wisdom and discernment is compromised. Now let's explore how this relates to the concept of flow state, as described by psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. Flow is that optimal state of consciousness where we are fully immersed in an activity, our skills perfectly matched to the challenge, leading to a sense of energized focus, full involvement, and enjoyment. The constant interruptions and fragmented nature of digital consumption are antithetical to achieving flow. Instead of deep immersion, we experience shallow engagement, a constant state of partial attention. The digital world, in its design, actively works against the conditions necessary for flow. The allure of novelty and the fragmented delivery of information prevent us from settling into the sustained concentration required for this deeply rewarding psychological state. This leaves us feeling less fulfilled, less engaged with our tasks, and ultimately less alive. Consider the practical implications of this on our daily lives. When we allow our attention to be dictated by the digital stream, we are essentially outsourcing our focus. We become reactive beings, responding to external prompts rather than proactively engaging with our own intentions. This can manifest as a pervasive feeling of busyness without accomplishment, of being constantly occupied yet never truly productive in a meaningful way. The tasks that require sustained attention, writing, deep learning, creative problem-solving, or even engaging in a meaningful conversation, become increasingly difficult to undertake. We find ourselves procrastinating, easily distracted, and feeling a persistent sense of unfulfillment because we are not allowing ourselves the space to enter into those deeply engaging, flow-inducing activities. The antidote, then, lies not in abstinence, but in mindful re-engagement. It's about recognizing the subtle ways in which digital stimuli can hijack our attention and actively cultivating practices that strengthen our capacity for sustained focus. This involves a conscious decision to reclaim our attentional resources, to direct our mental energy towards activities that foster deeper engagement and a more profound sense of presence. It's about understanding that true fulfillment often arises not from the constant acquisition of new information, but from the deep exploration of a single idea, a single task, or a single moment. This requires a deliberate shift in our habits, a conscious effort to create pockets of stillness in our day where we can cultivate our inner world without the incessant demands of the external digital landscape. The modern predicament, characterized by an insatiable digital appetite, has profoundly reshaped our perception of solitude. Once a space for introspection, creative incubation, and genuine self-discovery, solitude is now often viewed with apprehension, even dread. The persistent hum of notifications, the endless scroll, the curated highlight reels of others' lives, these have become our default mechanisms for avoiding the quietude that solitude demands. We have become so accustomed to the external validation and constant stimulation of the digital realm that the internal landscape, when unadorned by digital distractions, can feel alien and unsettling. This aversion to being alone with oneself is not merely a matter of preference. It represents a deeper existential challenge, a flight from the very conditions that foster self-awareness and personal growth. The fear of missing out, or FOMO, is a potent manifestation of this, compelling us to remain perpetually connected lest we miss some crucial update or social interaction, thereby sacrificing the invaluable opportunity for solitary reflection. Building on this discomfort with solitude, we encounter the concept of narrative identity, our personal story that we construct to make sense of our lives. The digital world offers an endless supply of ready-made narratives, from aspirational influencer lifestyles to dramatic news cycles, which can easily supplant the arduous work of crafting our own authentic story. When we are constantly bombarded with external narratives, our own internal story can become fragmented, diluted, or even erased. We may find ourselves adopting the language, values, and aspirations presented to us online, mistaking them for our own. This reliance on external narrative frameworks hinders the development of a robust sense of self, leaving us feeling adrift and disconnected from our core values and deepest desires. The carefully constructed online persona, often a composite of idealized traits, further complicates this, creating a chasm between the presented self and the authentic self, a schism that breeds internal dissonance. Furthermore, the very fabric of our attention economy incentivizes this avoidance of solitude. Our digital platforms are engineered to capture and monetize our attention. The longer we remain engaged, the more data is collected, and the more targeted advertising can be delivered. This economic model inherently discourages practices that require sustained, solitary focus, as these are antithetical to the rapid-fire, attention-grabbing tactics that drive engagement. Consequently, the digital environment actively conspires against the cultivation of deep thought and introspection, which are the very cornerstones of a rich inner life and a well-defined sense of self. The constant availability of digital distractions serves as an ever-present escape hatch, allowing us to sidestep the often challenging but ultimately rewarding process of confronting ourselves in moments of quiet. Consider how this applies when you find yourself with an unexpected pocket of free time, perhaps a cancelled appointment or a delayed train. Instead of savoring this interstitial moment for quiet contemplation, the instinct might be to immediately reach for your phone, to fill the void with scrolling. This isn't just about passing the time. It's about avoiding the subtle yet profound experience of simply being. The silence might feel deafening, the lack of external input jarring, yet within that very silence lies the potential for profound insight. It is in these moments, when the external noise recedes, that our own thoughts, feelings, and unacknowledged desires can begin to surface. This is the fertile ground where our authentic narrative identity can begin to take root, unburdened by the constant influx of external narratives. The challenge, then, is to reframe these moments not as voids to be filled, but as opportunities for self-discovery, as invitations to engage with the quiet dialogue of our own inner world. The psychological concept of self-regulation is also deeply intertwined with our ability to navigate the digital landscape mindfully. Self-regulation refers to our capacity to manage our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors in pursuit of long-term goals. The constant stimuli and instant gratification offered by digital platforms present a significant challenge to self-regulation. The immediate reward of a notification or a new piece of content can easily override our commitment to more meaningful, albeit less immediately gratifying activities. Developing stronger self-regulatory skills means consciously choosing to delay gratification, to resist impulsive behaviors, and to direct our attention towards our chosen objectives, even when faced with the alluring distractions of the digital world. This is not about deprivation, but about empowerment. The empowerment that comes from consciously directing our own mental and emotional resources. The philosophical underpinnings of authenticity, as explored by thinkers like Søren Kierkegaard, emphasize the importance of individual subjective experience and the courage to be oneself in the face of societal pressures. The digital realm, with its emphasis on curated personas and the pursuit of external validation, can create a powerful pressure to conform to idealized representations, thereby compromising our authenticity. When we are constantly comparing ourselves to these polished online versions of others, we risk losing sight of our own unique journey and inherent worth. The act of deliberately stepping away from this digital performance, of embracing solitude and engaging with our own unvarnished experience, is a radical act of self-affirmation. It is in these quiet, unobserved moments that we can begin to hear our own inner voice, to connect with our deepest values, and to construct a narrative identity that is truly our own, a narrative that resonates with our lived experience rather than a digitally fabricated ideal. The relentless barrage of digital stimuli has subtly altered our relationship with time perception. Our internal clocks, once attuned to natural rhythms of day and night, seasons and biological needs, are now often synchronized with the instantaneous demands of the digital world. The rapid-fire nature of notifications, the endless scroll offering a constant stream of novelty, compresses our experience of time. Minutes spent scrolling can feel like seconds, while moments of genuine, unmediated presence can feel agonizingly slow, even tedious. This temporal distortion is not merely an inconvenience. It can lead to a profound sense of disorientation and a diminished capacity to appreciate the present moment. The anticipation of the next digital hit creates a temporal acceleration, a perpetual state of almost there, which prevents us from fully inhabiting the now. We become temporal nomads, flitting from one fleeting stimulus to the next, never truly settling into the enduring rhythm of our own lived experience. Building on this distortion of time, we can examine the impact on our decision-making faculties. When our minds are constantly bombarded with information and our temporal perception is compressed, our ability to engage in considered, deliberate decision-making is compromised. Instead of weighing options, evaluating consequences, and aligning choices with our values, we are prone to making impulsive, reactive decisions driven by immediate stimuli or the perceived urgency of the digital environment. This can lead to a cascade of suboptimal choices, from the trivial, what to click next, to the significant, career moves, relationship commitments, all made under the influence of a digitally distorted temporal landscape. The subtle pressure to respond instantly, to keep pace with the rapid flow of online information, erodes the space needed for thoughtful deliberation, creating a fertile ground for regret and a sense of being out of control. Furthermore, the very nature of the attention economy actively exploits this temporal distortion. Platforms are designed to maximize engagement by offering a continuous stream of easily consumable content, each designed to capture our attention for the briefest possible interval before moving on to the next. This creates an environment where sustained focus becomes a luxury, and the ability to engage with tasks that require prolonged attention is actively undermined. The constant toggling between digital inputs, the rapid context switching, trains our brains to expect and crave this fragmented engagement, making it increasingly difficult to resist the allure of immediate digital rewards. Consequently, our capacity for deep work, for creativity, and for any endeavor that requires patient, sustained effort is diminished, leaving us feeling perpetually busy but rarely truly productive. Consider how this applies when you find yourself facing a complex problem or a task that requires deep concentration. Instead of allowing yourself the time to fully engage, to enter a state of focused thought, the instinct might be to break the task into smaller, more manageable digital-sized chunks, or to seek external validation or distraction online. This is a direct consequence of our altered temporal perception and the habits fostered by the attention economy. The perceived slowness of deep work becomes intolerable, and the quick dopamine hit of digital interaction becomes the preferred, albeit ultimately less fulfilling, alternative. The challenge, then, is to consciously resist this impulse, to deliberately carve out time for sustained focus, and to retrain our internal clocks to value depth and deliberation over the fleeting immediacy of digital engagement. This might involve setting strict time limits for digital use, engaging in focused work sessions with notifications turned off, or even practicing deliberate periods of digital fasting to recalibrate our temporal awareness. Another crucial layer to consider is the psychological concept of cognitive flexibility. This refers to our ability to shift our thinking, adapt to new information, and consider different perspectives. While the digital world bombards us with diverse information, the manner in which it is presented often hinders true cognitive flexibility. The algorithms tend to reinforce existing biases, creating echo chambers that limit exposure to genuinely novel or challenging viewpoints. The rapid-fire consumption of information also prevents us from deeply processing and integrating new ideas. Consequently, our ability to adapt our thinking, to consider alternative viewpoints, and to engage in nuanced problem-solving can become impaired. We may become intellectually rigid, caught in a cycle of superficial engagement that prevents us from truly expanding our understanding and adapting to the complexities of the world. This intellectual inflexibility, fostered by a digitally distorted temporal and attentional landscape, can leave us ill-equipped to navigate the ever-changing realities of modern life. The pervasive influence of digital saturation has subtly reshaped our fundamental understanding of self-efficacy, that deeply ingrained belief in our own capability to influence events and produce desired outcomes. When our daily interactions are dominated by passive consumption of curated content, the opportunities for genuine agency dwindle. Each scroll, each click, represents a minute surrender of control, a concession to algorithmic direction rather than personal initiative. This constant exposure to seemingly effortless online achievements or polished presentations of success can paradoxically diminish our own sense of competence. We observe a world where outcomes appear instantaneous and effortless for others, leading to an unconscious depreciation of our own efforts, particularly when faced with the inherent friction and time investment required for real-world accomplishments. The subtle implication is that perhaps mastery and impact are simpler, more readily available commodities than they truly are, leading to a disheartening disconnect when our own endeavors don't yield similar, immediate results. Furthermore, the relentless availability of immediate answers and external validation online can stunt the development of intrinsic motivation, the internal drive to engage in activities for their own sake, for the sheer enjoyment or satisfaction they bring. When every query can be instantly answered by a search engine, and every minor accomplishment can be broadcast for external approval, the internal engine of curiosity and self-directed learning can begin to falter. The satisfaction derived from wrestling with a difficult problem, from the slow, organic growth of knowledge through persistent effort, is bypassed in favor of the quick fix and the fleeting validation of a like. This external locus of reward, consistently reinforced by the digital environment, can lead to a situation where individuals feel compelled to act only when prompted or rewarded externally, rather than from a deep-seated personal desire or passion. The joy of the process itself, the intrinsic reward of mastery, is overshadowed by the pursuit of external markers of success. Another crucial layer to consider is how digital immersion impacts our capacity for resilience, our ability to bounce back from adversity and adapt to challenging circumstances. The curated nature of online life often presents an idealized, sanitized version of reality, where struggles and setbacks are frequently omitted or glossed over. This constant exposure to seemingly frictionless success stories can create unrealistic expectations about the nature of challenges. When individuals inevitably encounter real-world difficulties, the lack of exposure to authentic portrayals of struggle and recovery can make them feel ill-equipped to cope. The digital echo chambers, which often amplify outrage or offer simplistic solutions to complex problems, do little to foster the nuanced understanding of perseverance that comes from genuine lived experience and observing the arduous journeys of others. The subtle message is that problems should be easily solvable, and that significant effort or prolonged struggle is a sign of inadequacy rather than a natural and often necessary part of growth. Now consider how this applies when you face a project that feels daunting or a personal goal that requires sustained effort over time. Instead of immediately seeking external resources or feeling overwhelmed by the perceived ease with which others seem to achieve similar feats online, what if you were to acknowledge the inherent difficulty? What if you were to consciously recognize that real-world accomplishments are often the product of sustained effort, inevitable setbacks, and a strong internal compass guiding you through the process? This conscious reframing, acknowledging the friction, valuing the process over instant results, and drawing upon your own internal drive rather than external validation, is a powerful exercise in rebuilding self-efficacy and fostering intrinsic motivation. It's about understanding that the most meaningful achievements are rarely born from passive consumption, but from active, persistent, and self-directed engagement with the world, a stark contrast to the often effortless-seeming digital experience. The subtle erosion of our belief in our own capabilities, fueled by the digital current, can be consciously countered by intentionally engaging in activities that require sustained effort and offer intrinsic rewards, thereby strengthening our resilience and reclaiming our sense of personal agency. The modern digital landscape, with its curated illusions and amplified narratives, has subtly eroded our capacity for epistemic humility. This is the quiet recognition that our knowledge is always incomplete, our understanding provisional, and our perspectives inherently limited. The constant stream of readily available facts, often presented with an air of absolute certainty, encourages a false sense of omniscience. We become accustomed to quick answers, readily accessible information that bypasses the slower, more rigorous process of genuine inquiry. Consequently, the nuanced appreciation for differing viewpoints, the understanding that truth can be multifaceted and context-dependent, begins to wane. The digital echo chambers further exacerbate this, reinforcing our existing beliefs and shielding us from perspectives that might challenge our perceived certainty, thus diminishing our willingness to acknowledge the boundaries of our own knowing. Building on this, however, we can explore the psychological phenomenon of confirmation bias in its digital manifestation. This bias, our innate tendency to seek out and interpret information that confirms our pre-existing beliefs, finds fertile ground online. Algorithms designed to personalize content inadvertently create sophisticated confirmation bias machines. They feed us more of what we already agree with, creating an illusion of widespread consensus and making it increasingly difficult to encounter dissenting opinions or contradictory evidence. This digital reinforcement loop not only solidifies our existing views, but also makes us less receptive to alternative interpretations, further entrenching our epistemic certainty and reducing our capacity for intellectual humility. The ease with which we can find evidence to support almost any claim online means that the critical filter of doubt, essential for genuine understanding, is often bypassed. Consequently, our ability to engage in meaningful dialogue is significantly hampered. When we approach conversations, particularly online, with an unshakable conviction in our own correctness, dialogue devolves into monologue, or, worse, a battle of assertions. The digital space, with its inherent distance and potential for anonymity, often removes the social cues and empathetic considerations that facilitate genuine exchange. Instead of listening to understand, we listen to respond, to refute, or to reinforce our own position. This creates an environment where genuine connection and mutual learning are replaced by a performative defense of one's own viewpoint, leaving us more entrenched in our beliefs and less open to the possibility of evolving our understanding through interaction with others. The very platforms designed to connect us can, paradoxically, isolate us within our own echo chambers of certainty. Another crucial layer to consider is the impact on our critical discernment. The sheer volume of information available online, coupled with the sophisticated methods used to present it, clickbait headlines, emotionally charged language, manipulated imagery, makes it increasingly challenging to distinguish between reliable information and misinformation or disinformation. Without a foundational practice of epistemic humility, a healthy skepticism about the nature of online content, we become more susceptible to manipulation. The absence of a conscious acknowledgement of our own limitations in knowledge makes us less likely to question the sources, scrutinize the evidence, or consider alternative explanations. This diminished critical discernment leaves us vulnerable to forming beliefs based on flawed or intentionally misleading information, further contributing to a polarized and misinformed public discourse. Now consider how this applies when you encounter a strongly worded opinion online, particularly one that aligns perfectly with your existing views. Instead of immediately accepting it as unquestionable truth, what if you were to pause and acknowledge that your own understanding, however firm it feels, is always incomplete? What if you were to consciously seek out at least one credible source that presents a contrasting perspective, not to refute it, but to understand its reasoning? This deliberate act of seeking out dissonance, of acknowledging the provisional nature of knowledge, is a practical exercise in cultivating epistemic humility. It's about recognizing that the most profound learning often occurs at the edges of our certainty, in the spaces where our assumptions are gently challenged, rather than reinforced by the endless stream of digital affirmation. It is in actively choosing to embrace this uncertainty, this incompleteness, that we begin to reclaim a more authentic and robust engagement with truth and with each other. The relentless pursuit of novelty in the digital sphere has fundamentally altered our relationship with the concept of satisfaction. True satisfaction, that deep sense of contentment arising from accomplishment and presence, is often supplanted by a fleeting and ultimately hollow form of gratification. This digital gratification is characterized by its ephemerality. Each notification, each like, each piece of consumed content provides a momentary dopamine hit, a brief flicker of pleasure that quickly fades, leaving us craving the next stimulus. This creates a cycle of seeking, where the anticipation of pleasure becomes more potent than the pleasure itself, leading to a perpetual state of dissatisfaction masked by constant engagement. The digital world, in its design, actively undermines the conditions necessary for lasting contentment by offering a constant yet ultimately unfulfilling stream of superficial rewards. Building on this, however, we encounter the psychological concept of hedonic adaptation, our tendency to quickly return to a relatively stable level of happiness despite major positive or negative events or life changes. In the context of digital consumption, hedonic adaptation means that the initial excitement and pleasure derived from new online experiences rapidly diminishes. The thrill of a new app, the allure of a trending topic, or the validation from social media interactions all fade quickly, requiring ever-increasing levels of stimulation to achieve the same fleeting sense of satisfaction. This cycle of escalating digital consumption, driven by hedonic adaptation, leads to a subtle but pervasive sense of emptiness, as the baseline for digital pleasure rises, making genuine non-digital sources of contentment seem less appealing or even inert. We are constantly chasing a moving target, the digital equivalent of a sugar rush that leaves us craving more, never truly nourished. Furthermore, the digital environment often fosters a culture of comparison and envy, directly undermining our capacity for contentment. Social media platforms in particular are curated spaces where individuals often present idealized versions of their lives, highlighting achievements and positive experiences while downplaying struggles and imperfections. This constant exposure to the highlight reels of others can lead to a distorted perception of reality, fostering feelings of inadequacy and envy. When our own lived experiences, with their inherent complexities and mundane moments, are juxtaposed against these polished online personas, it becomes easy to feel that we are falling short. This unceasing comparison erodes our ability to appreciate our own unique journey and find contentment in our present circumstances, as we are perpetually measuring ourselves against an often unattainable and artificial standard. Consider how this applies when you find yourself scrolling through social media and experiencing a pang of dissatisfaction with your own life. Instead of succumbing to the urge to compare or seeking immediate digital distraction, what if you were to consciously acknowledge the feeling of envy or inadequacy? What if you were to then deliberately shift your focus to something tangible in your immediate environment? The warmth of the sun on your skin, the taste of your morning coffee, or the rhythm of your own breath. This deliberate redirection, this intentional grounding in the present, unmediated reality, is a powerful countermeasure to the discontent fostered by digital comparison. It is an act of reclaiming your attention from the external, often illusory, narratives of others and reinvesting it in the tangible richness of your own lived experience, thereby cultivating a more robust and sustainable form of satisfaction. The digital world offers a mirage of constant fulfillment, but true contentment, like a deep well, is found not in the fleeting surface ripples, but in the quiet depths of present, embodied experience. Reflecting on this journey so far, we've navigated the intricate interplay between our inner landscapes and the pervasive digital currents that shape our modern experience. We've observed how the very architecture of our digital engagement can subtly yet profoundly recalibrate our perception of time, diminish our innate sense of agency, and reshape our capacity for genuine satisfaction. The constant hum of external validation, the readily available answers that bypass deeper inquiry, and the curated highlight reels of others' lives have collectively woven a complex tapestry, one that can obscure the enduring richness of our own lived realities. It is as if we have been sojourning through a vast, dazzling city of light and sound, often mistaking its vibrant facade for the quiet, fertile ground of our own inner being. As we pivot towards the final reflection, consider the cumulative effect of these shifts, the ease with which we can outsource our attention, the subtle erosion of our internal compass, and the perpetual chase for fleeting digital rewards have, in essence, begun to redraw the boundaries of our perceived world. The once clear distinction between external stimuli and internal experience has blurred, creating a subtle but significant recalibration of what feels real, what feels urgent, and what feels truly fulfilling. The journey thus far has illuminated the intricate pathways through which this recalibration occurs, revealing how our habits of engagement can inadvertently lead us away from the very sources of resilience, contentment, and authentic connection we so deeply seek. The cumulative weight of these observations points not towards a simple renunciation, but towards a conscious reorientation, a gentle yet firm reclaiming of our most precious inner resources. The implications of this convergence are profound, suggesting a path forward that honors both the realities of our interconnected world and the enduring wisdom of our inner lives. The confluence of these insights creates a palpable anticipation for what lies ahead, a sense of approaching clarity that beckons us towards a final, resonant understanding. The digital tide, with its ceaseless currents of information and its dazzling ephemeral promises, has undeniably reshaped the shores of our inner world. We have journeyed through the labyrinth of distraction, discerning how the immediate gratification of the screen can subtly erode our capacity for deep satisfaction, distort our perception of time, and diminish our inherent sense of agency. The constant barrage, the curated perfection, the endless scroll, these have, for many, become the default rhythm of existence, a subtle outsourcing of our attention that leaves us feeling paradoxically more disconnected, more anxious, and less truly present in the unfolding tapestry of our own lives. This is not a condemnation of the tools themselves, but a profound recognition of their power to shape our consciousness, to nudge us away from the quiet sanctuary of our own being and into a perpetual state of external engagement. The echoes of this journey reveal a central truth, that true fulfillment is not found in the sheer volume of what we consume, but in the depth of our engagement with ourselves and with the unmediated present. The core insight that emerges from this exploration is not one of rejection, but of reclamation. It is the understanding that our most potent tools for navigating the complexities of the modern world, for cultivating genuine peace, and for forging authentic connections reside not in the external digital realm, but within the quiet, often overlooked landscape of our own consciousness. The breath, a constant, unassuming anchor, offers a tangible pathway back to ourselves. The practice of awareness, cultivated through deliberate attention, allows us to observe the digital torrent without being swept away by it. It is in these simple yet profound acts of turning inward that we begin to rebuild our resilience, to deepen our capacity for contentment, and to reclaim the narrative of our own lives from the algorithms and external pressures that seek to dictate it. This is not about achieving an unattainable state of digital abstinence, but about fostering a conscious, discerning relationship with technology, one where we are the masters of our attention, not its servants. The journey, then, is not about finding a magical solution, but about embracing a continuous practice. It is in the small, deliberate moments of choosing presence over distraction, of opting for introspection over immediate external validation, that the true transformation begins. It is in the quiet commitment to grounding ourselves in our breath, to observing our thoughts without judgment, and to engaging with the world from a place of inner stillness rather than reactive consumption. This is where the measurable difference lies, not in external metrics of likes or followers, but in the internal shifts that foster a deeper sense of peace, a more robust sense of self, and a more authentic connection to the world around us. The true practice begins now, in the quiet space between breaths, in the conscious choice to be fully present in the unfolding